One aspect of a film that always stands out to me is when it manages to have an undeniable, palpable atmosphere. So strong it's almost as if you can touch it or taste it. And few films I've come across have had as tangible of an atmosphere as Ridley Scott's Alien. It is a masterclass in atmosphere, making you feel as if you yourself are on the Nostromo, waiting for the alien to make its way out of the shadows and snatch you right up. Every time I watch the film, two things stand out to me the most: set design and music. The set of the Nostromo itself is incredible. The detail given to it is rivaled by a few other space station sets on film. The muck and grime of it is one of the biggest factors toward creating a palpable atmosphere, as the Nostromo feels like a living, breathing place. Despite Alien being greenlit due to the success of Star Wars, the set design department on Alien went in a decidedly different direction with their space station. Instead of shiny and clean and awe-inspiring like the Death Star, the Nostromo is dirty and worn down. Its low-rent aesthetic can be seen in its technology as well, with the filmmakers opting to go for a more bulky design choice, very reminiscent of, at the time, average contemporary computers, instead of the more sleek design of the technology seen on the Death Star. The set alone communicated the idea of who these characters were and what kind of futuristic world they lived in. These are not heroes on an epic journey. They're merely everyday workers in space. Regular people simply on a job. There's no shine or gloss to any of what they're doing, despite the awe-inspiring setting of space. But the brilliant set design does have another thing to lean on, and that is the beautifully haunting Jerry Goldsmith score. The leitmotif of just a few notes that appears in the opening minutes of the film is one of the most evocative motifs in perhaps any film, especially when it comes to both sci-fi and horror. The cue of those handful of light whistling notes are usually followed by a more sinister chugging sound that is much heavier and bassier, then followed by the same high-pitched soft motif with that same cycle repeating. The combination of these make for a beautiful yet unsettling feel, which perfectly encapsulates the film as a whole. The broken down, grimy set design, coupled with the serenely haunting score, are two of the biggest propellers in creating the tone for the film, and tone is what Alien is all about. It lives and dies on its tone, as its plot is extremely simple, and even the characters, while mostly engaging and worthy of rooting for against the alien, are not the deepest or most compelling in any film. Steven Spielberg's Jaws has a very similar bare-bones premise of a big monster terrorizing people, but whereas that film leans heavily on its characters and their relationships with each other to keep the film from becoming just another B-monster picture, Alien, on the other hand, relies on its tone and atmosphere to do the heavy lifting. Surprisingly, the alien itself doesn't actually appear in the film until around the 50-minute mark of this just shy of 2-hour film. But most people probably don't remember it being that way, since the film already creates a strong sense of dread right from the opening credits. Again, the score and set design help with this, but it's also Ridley Scott's masterful direction with his slow gliding camera around the empty hallways of the ship, or the cutaway shots interspersed between scenes or even in the middle of scenes. Sometimes a scene will be in progress and Scott will simply cut away to a quiet shot of the environment or ship, contrasting with whatever drama is going on between the characters. Despite the shots seemingly being peaceful, usually of the exterior of the ship or the planet they investigate, when seen in context, they actually give off a far more threatening feel, as if the crew is being watched by someone or something, perhaps not even anything living, but evoking simply dread itself. These shots, especially when interspersed with the crew's conflicts, highlight just how small and insignificant they are in the greater galaxy that they are trekking through, and that feeling only ramps up when the alien finally makes its entrance. But these shots in the first half of the film help to plant the seeds of that dreaded feeling within the viewer before there's even any sign of the alien, and that is a testament to the brilliant atmosphere that was created. The film, much like Jaws, also hides its creature for much of the runtime, even after it's made its first appearance at the halfway point. We only see the alien in roughly 4 scenes after growing to its full size, and only in brief, darkly lit shots for the most part, helping to create a sense of the unknown. Instead of showing us the full alien from head to toe, Scott opts to show us parts of the alien, be it its mouth within a mouth as it launches out at Brett, its tail slithering its way up Lambert's leg, or the profile of its overly long head. Always a section of the alien that is innately disturbing. But unlike Jaws, Alien does the opposite with its characters. Whereas in Jaws we have a clear lead character from the beginning and then expand outward to include two more later on, Alien starts off with an ensemble and only reveals its lead as the film progresses. I've always found this to be an interesting structure to developing a character, as it requires the character to earn the spot of lead protagonist instead of simply being given the title. In this fashion, Ripley has something to prove. The film makes no hints toward her being the lead for quite a while. If anything, Dallas would be the closest to a lead out of all of them. But as the film goes on, we see moments scattered throughout that showcase Ripley's strengths, the most notable being when she refuses to let Dallas, Lambert, and Kane back in the ship after Kane has been attacked by the facehugger, only to get overridden by Ash. Even Dallas did not stick to the protocol to prevent a possible infection to the rest of the crew, yet Ripley did, and was ultimately proven right. This marks a big shift from the film being an ensemble with partial leaning toward Dallas as a possible lead, to Ripley beginning to show her dues and proving she has what it takes to be the lead protagonist that the audience can easily root for. And after Dallas's death, who, mind you, dies fairly early on once the attacks begin, Ripley then fully takes center stage within the narrative, now being the one to call the shots and give the orders to the remaining crew of Ash, Parker, and Lambert. But a thing to note is that she doesn't instantly become all-powerful and unflinching. There are several moments even in the very late stages of the film where her fear and anxiety visibly take their toll on her, as she's seen heavily panting, having angry outbursts, and during the climax even has to sing to herself in order to calm herself down when trying to come up with a plan to get the alien out of the shuttle. She remains flawed and human to the very end, thereby always endearing the audience more and more toward her and her plight. And by the end, her being the sole survivor of the Nostromo makes complete sense and feels organic, rather than the film marking her as the lead right from the outset, which would have made the film far more predictable and made Ripley into a much less engaging character. All of these elements coalesce into a masterpiece of atmosphere, dread, and a showcase of determination and perseverance. Alien took a B-movie plot and elevated it to be one of the greatest films of all time, with masterful direction, music, set design, and subtle character building with no cheap tricks to be found. And for this, it is still a film that many have tried to replicate, but none have succeeded quite as much at exactly what Alien managed to pull off so well.